Star Wars Outlaws was arguably my most anticipated game of the entire year, right alongside Dragon Age: The Veilguard and the Silent Hill 2 remake. Not that I necessarily thought it was going to be amazing or groundbreaking or life-changing or anything like that, but it seemed like it was going to be exactly what I wanted, but more importantly, it was going to drop when I wanted it to drop. I'm a big fan of the Star Wars universe, but I have fallen so behind in that regard. I haven't watched The Acolyte, I haven't watched Ahsoka, I haven't watched Andor, I haven't watched Mandalorian Season 3. Hell, I haven't even played the Jedi Survivor games, even though they look phenomenal. So the urge to return to the world of Star Wars has been boiling in my blood, but I'm also pretty fond of the Ubisoft open world design, if I'm being honest with you. I know their games can be a little too safe and a little too by the numbers sometimes, but right now, in this moment, that's exactly what I want. Ever since I've been focusing heavily on gaming on this channel, I've been playing a lot of games, and I've been dabbling in a lot of genres that are typically out of my comfort zone, and I love doing that, but my gaming heart has been yearning for something familiar. So that feeling, alongside my desire to get back into something with the Star Wars label on it, has really fueled my hype for this game. It also helps that I haven't played an open world Ubisoft game in so long. I played and reviewed Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora last year, but I didn't get to put nearly as much time into that game as I wanted to. But yeah, anyway, Star Wars Outlaws came out today, at least if you got the gold edition like myself, but if you got the standard edition, it comes out in 3 days, I believe. But regardless, I've been playing it a lot for hours, and I have a lot of thoughts I want to share with you. I'm going to show you some raw gameplay. I'm going to review the game for you, but before I do that, hit that subscribe button. I talk about and review video games all the time on this channel. I do day one reviews, I do other video game discussions. My next review after this is going to be on September 3rd for The Casting of Frank Stone, and then after that is going to be September 6th for Astrobot. Then after that, I'll be reviewing practically every big and mid-release of the entire season, so consider subscribing if you want to keep up. But anyway, enough with this introduction. Let's talk about Star Wars Outlaws.
There's more of them?
Whoever triggered that alarm is inside. Seal the doors.
Everything's locked down.
So if you're new to this channel, let's start off with what kind of review this is. It's a first impressions review. This is a small ass channel and I don't get early access except for when I can pay for it. So I do have several hours in the game already, but needless to say, I haven't beaten the game yet. I haven't seen everything it has to offer. I haven't overturned every rock on every planet. But if you're anything like me, you want to know a game is good from the start, especially with a giant open world game like this. You don't like spending $70+ on a wing and a prayer. You're sick of the constant promise that a game gets good after 30 or so hours. And also, this review will be spoiler free. I will talk about the story a little bit, but I won't go into any detail about the narrative, and all of the gameplay that you're watching is from very early on. But with all that being said, depending on how this video performs, I'll make a follow-up video going over my thoughts after I spend a lot more time in the game. But anyway, let's actually get into the review this time. Let's start off with everything I like so far about Star Wars Outlaws. The first thing about this game that is immediately praisable is the visuals of this world, which I honestly didn't think would be that big of a talking point, especially for myself, because I don't typically care about graphics. But as soon as the game starts, it just looks so damn pretty. The game looks and feels so alive most of the time. It really feels like you're walking around these cities and driving around on these planets. The lighting especially is phenomenal, from the sun beaming down during the day while you're riding around on your speeder, to the limited light being illuminated from lamps and spotlights and dark alleyways during the night. This world visually feels so real and so alive and so beautiful, especially for a Ubisoft game. But on the flip side, there's another aspect of the world that makes it feel a little more lifeless, and I'll talk about that when I get into my negatives. But anyway, let's talk about the most important aspect of Star Wars Outlaws, or really any video game in my opinion, and that's the gameplay. Is the game fun to play? Is it actually fun to press the buttons and to do the things? For the most part, yes. I'm having a lot of fun with Star Wars Outlaws so far. Its gameplay is mostly what you'd expect from a Ubisoft game. It's a third-person shooter, and the shooting, or should I say blasting, in this game feels wicked satisfying. The animations when you shoot people are practically as good as they can be, and the sound quality is top tier. One of my favorite aspects of the gameplay, though, is your little creature pet named Nix. You can send him to collect resources for you if you see something in an area that you can't get to, but you can also send him to distract enemies or to jump on enemies, which will open them up for a melee takedown, or you can have him pickpocket people so you can steal their resources. The game also has a lot of other Ubisoft-esque features. There's some climbing up cliffs and scaling walls, marking enemies so you can plan infiltrations, or gauge whether or not you want to go in gung-ho like a gunslinger. There's some light puzzles when you need to hack into computers, and a lock-picking minigame, which is pretty cool in my opinion. It's a lot different than most other lock-picking minigames. It's rhythm-based, which I thought was pretty unique, but probably the most unique thing Star Wars Outlaws does, though, in terms of its core game design, is the criminal syndicate system. There's 3 main syndicates in the game: the Pikes, Crimson Dawn, and the Hutts, and the vast majority of the missions in this game, both main and side quests, will involve one or multiple of these syndicates, and based on the decisions you make, your standing with each syndicate will change. So for example, if you do a bunch of shit for the Crimson Dawn, you could really piss off the Hutts, and because the Hutts are pissed off, you might get less mission opportunities from them, or even more drastic, they could start throwing hands on sight when they see you. But since the Crimson Dawn has you wrapped around their finger, they might give you discounts on their items or offer you more quests or customization parts, and this is definitely the feature in the game that I'm the most excited to mess around with more. Also, this game so far seems to have a decent amount of actual decision making, not only with dialogue and story stuff, but smaller things you can choose to either do or not do. For example, very early on in the game, you go to a cantina and you need to talk to a dude up in the VIP rooms. And right when you enter, a dude comes up to you and is like, "Hey, you trying to get up there? I can help you out." But I just chose to ignore him, and with some slight exploration, I found my way up into the VIP lounge myself. And I will say this, obviously Star Wars Outlaws is an open world game with multiple planets and side quests and side activities and all that sort of thing. And I have played around in the open world a little bit, but not nearly as much as I wanted to. So I can't say, and I won't say as of right now, whether or not I think this is a good or a bad open world, and whether or not the open world itself is fun to explore, full of meaningful stuff to do. But I can say from what I experienced so far, the world seems surprisingly fine-tuned. It doesn't seem as fat as a lot of other recent Ubisoft games. Based on my playtime, most of the stuff seems worthwhile and not just bloat for the sake of an inflated playtime. I just hope it stays that way. And I didn't experience as much of the open world yet as I wanted to, because the game is surprisingly linear for quite a while when you first start. I'd say the first 2 to 4 hours, depending on your pacing, how quickly you play through it, is practically an entirely linear experience, and that kind of pivots me into the critiques I have with the game so far. I don't dislike linear games. Most of my favorite games are linear games, but the level design of the first few missions in this game did leave a lot to be desired, at least for me. I know this game is called Outlaws, and it's all about crime syndicates, but I think the first 3, maybe even first 4 missions of this game are structured practically exactly the same. You enter a place looking to steal something, you get hit with a forced stealth section. Yes, a forced stealth section, followed by something going wrong during your mission, in which the game actually allows you to shoot your blaster as you escape. It was pretty disappointing for me to realize that the first handful of story missions kind of felt like I was doing the same thing over and over. But again, I'm still very early on in the game. I'm sure things start to vary as the game progresses, especially when you dabble more in the open world and the syndicate system. Also, I said the game felt real and alive in terms of its graphics and its lighting and its environments, and that's true. But for some reason, I don't really like the NPCs in this game, and I can't quite explain why. There's a lot of great and unique dialogue as you walk around and you listen to random NPCs. You can see people working on bikes, or begging for change, or guarding entrances, a lot of different things. And their animations look very natural and real. It's technically great, but for some reason, most NPCs feel like they're just smoke and mirrors to me, like they're existing on a loop, in some mirror realm that's different from our own, where, like, for example, the NPCs in, say, I don't know, Hogwarts Legacy, they walked around and felt more robotic in terms of how they moved, but they felt like they existed alongside me, like we shared the same world. And again, I don't really know why, but it feels like most NPCs in this game just don't feel real, and it makes the world feel a little less alive despite all the other things this game does to make it feel otherwise.
That worked!
But probably my biggest critique with this game so far is that almost every gameplay mechanic feels a little too easy and a little too copy and paste from other better games. Like, for example, again, this game has a noticeable amount of climbing around, but it feels so hands-off, unlike, say, Uncharted or Tomb Raider or Ubisoft's own Assassin's Creed series. There seems to be almost no player function or player interaction needed to do a lot of the stuff that you're doing. When you're climbing, it's just tap X, move the analog stick slightly, then tap X again, then again and again. It feels like it's just one step above a QuickTime event, but you're not even timed, so there's not even like any stakes. But that's not the only example of this feeling a little too hands-off at times. I mentioned how there's a mini game when you hack into computers, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I literally click random buttons every time I'm hit with one of those minigames, and I've succeeded in each one on my first attempt. And stealth is also a big gamble in this game as well. Sometimes it feels good, and other times it had me really scratching my head. Sometimes I could get into it and I hid behind shit, and I had Nyx jump on people's heads as I then rendered them immobile. And sometimes it's a lot of fun and I was immersed in the stealth sections. But other times I'd punch a dude to death and his partner that was standing right next to him wouldn't even notice or have no idea where I was, and that really broke the immersion and the sense of challenge. Also, I'm not going to spoil the story for you, but it's not really doing anything for me as of yet. I don't really care about the main character or the plot line, and I don't care what the main character is doing or why she's doing it. But again, that could change, and I really, really desperately hope it does change. But yeah, I know, most reviews should be conclusive, but like I said, this is a first impressions review, and the verdict is still out on this one for me. I'm probably the most indecisive than I've ever been in any of my reviews so far. I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on the game, because I'm not. I do genuinely think this game has more than a fair chance of turning around for me and becoming one of the best gaming experiences of the year. All the pieces are there, but I'd be lying if I said there weren't red flags everywhere as well, and that half my brain is already thinking Star Wars Outlaws might be a dud. I think it's really going to depend on how great the open world ends up feeling the more that I experience it, and I really hope the game lets up on the reins just a little bit more and it doesn't feel as linear as it has so far. But again, if this video performs at least somewhat well, I will make a follow-up video and give my final verdict then. If you want me to say whether or not I recommend the game as of now, I can't really say that I do. I don't think I'll personally regret spending the money, because despite everything I just said, I am still enjoying the game for the most part. I'm happy to be playing it. I'm really excited to play it some more once I upload this review. But as of right now, I'd only recommend the game to people who are big fans of Star Wars, or people who like the Ubisoft game formula and are just itching to try a more refined version of it. But if you're just a casual fan and you only have a passing interest in this game, I'd wait on it until it's a little bit cheaper. But again, I know I sound like a broken record. That's my thoughts as of right now. That very well could change when I put in more hours. But yeah, anyway, that's my thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws so far. Have you tried it out yet? If you have, let me know what you're thinking about it in the comments below, whether you're liking it or whether you're hating it or whether you think it's mid. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments, or if you're going to ignore it completely, let me know why, because I'd like to hear your reasoning. Once again, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'll be reviewing The Casting of Frank Stone on the 3rd, Astrobot on the 6th, and then shortly after that I'm going to have a longer review for Warhammer Space Marine 2. But anyway, thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far. I'll see you guys in the next video.
What do you see? Take him down next.
Ultra!